Hello everyone, I hope you're having a wonderful week, and to help you with your studies, I've pulled together a few tips that I'd like to share with you as we start learning about presentations and as you start creating your PowerPoint presentation. So to get started, here are a few of my favorite tips for creating effective PowerPoint presentations. First, less is more. Second, play to your audience. And third, be aware of copyright always. So let's take a little bit of a closer look at these tips and see what I'm really talking about. So for less is more, remember that your slides are not a script. They're a visual cue for your audience. It's something to help your audience take away the most important parts of your presentation. It's the key notes that you want them to be able to remember and really internalize. For an example of this, let's look at these two mock slides that I've created here. Which one would you say is more effective at a glance? Certainly there's more information here, but were you able to process it in just a few seconds of looking at it? Usually not. Usually when you have this much text all close together like that, you don't actually process any of it very quickly. A key to having an effective PowerPoint slide is to have plenty of white space between your text and to only use words that will really stick out to your audience and ones that will capture your meaning in the fewest words possible. Less is more in this case. And this concept applies to your visuals, your transitions, and all of your effects as well. Yes, there are a lot of really cool things you can do with fun transitions. There's a lot of artwork you can do and even clickable content, but that's not always what you are going to want to use for a nice, polished, professional presentation. So just remember, when it comes to slides, less is more. It's just a tool to help connect your audience with your message. It's not something to really wow them in most instances. Now, our next tip is to play to your audience. These are the three basic types of appeals that we use with our audiences. There is logos, which is logic and reason. There's pathos, which is emotions and feelings. And there's ethos, which is credibility and ethics. Now, usually you will let one of these appeals lead your message. So for instance, if you were presenting to a group of doctors on the efficacy of a vaccine, you might rely really heavily on ethos because you want to build yourself as a credible source. You want to show your own credibility and the ethics of the issue you're presenting. But if you were to present to a group of teachers or mothers, you might rely on more of a pathos approach because you would want to talk about all of the benefits that there could be for children and all of the many ways that this can help people have a more successful, more safe, more happy life. And if you are talking to perhaps a group of your peers, you would use logos. You would want to talk about logic and reason to talk about, is this really a good option? Here is why it is, or here's why it's not. You would want to rely on reason for that kind of an audience because your peers are students as well. You're learning research and writing and persuasion and all of those things. So hopefully this helps you get a good idea of how to use these different appeals to influence your audience appropriately. Always keep that in mind. This is a really wonderful tool to use, and it's the basis for argument, for persuasion, and even persuasive writing. So I hope this will be as helpful to you as it has been to me. Now finally, be aware of copyright. When it comes to photos, you want to make sure that you are always using photos that are not protected by copyright. What that means is you don't want to just steal photos off of Google Images. You don't want to just grab a photo from anywhere you found it on the internet, especially not without giving credit to the person who took the photo or the artist in this case. A really wonderful way to do this is to find tools that will connect you with public domain photos. This is one of my favorite websites for that. It's called morguefile.com, and it is a fantastic tool because every photo there is licensed for commercial use and it's free to you. So you can never get in trouble for using the photos here that you'll find here, and you can usually find something that fits your message. It's a pretty good database of photos. Now, with quotes, when you're including those, you want to make sure that you're always giving proper attribution, which means just giving your source credit, like when you're writing a paper. And similarly, we want to do the same thing with graphics. If you're not actually creating a graphic or a chart or a graph like we've been learning in our lessons, and you're using one that is already created or even one from a public source, you want to make sure you're giving that source credit. And you can do that most easily by putting a little small blurb of text right at the end of the graphic that tells what the source is. That will protect you from issues with copyright, and it will help you to just better show your sources and that they're credible. Now, you have these 3 tips now, and I hope they'll be helpful to you as you start working on your presentation. But I want to remind you that presentation is really just another way to connect with people, to connect with your audience. And as we think about that connection, I would like to turn it just a little bit and think about connection in another area of your life. This quote reads, "We must deliberately take time each day to disconnect from the world and connect with heaven." That is something that I sometimes struggle with. I feel like as an online instructor, I am constantly checking my messages, my emails, our Canvas room. As a photographer, I'm dealing with clients and answering their questions. As a mom, I am constantly at my son's beck and call to make sure he is cared for, loved, comfortable, safe, and all of that. There are so many places where I feel that I'm being pulled, and I'm sure that you have felt that as well. But I try to remember this quote, and I try to remind myself that it's important to connect with heaven as well and with my Heavenly Father. So I will leave that thought with you and wish you the very best of luck this week as you work on connecting through presentation and hopefully connecting with heaven as a regular part of your day. Thanks so much for watching, and good luck this week.